Brad and Chris here with Twisted Oak Brewery. Today we're going to do a malt liquor sampling. Our goal today is to formulate our own version of a malt liquor. And I first came and pitched this idea to Chris like a year ago, and your response was, why? And I think that's what most people are going to say when they look at this video, like, why? Why even bother? Well, two reasons come to mind here. One is this malt liquor is a type of a beer style, and my goal is to brew every single beer style out there. And number two, I kind of have a deep connection with a malt liquor. Like growing up when I was young, I drank a lot of malt liquor, and back then craft beer wasn't even a thing. And it was like drinking macro beers and Budweiser and Michelob and whatever else you could get your hands on. But malt liquor was huge back then. Every single, convenience store you go to, there'd be 40-ounce bottles of malt liquor everywhere, and it was cheap, like $2.
Yep. Oh.
You're getting a buzz off of $2. And I remember actually acquiring a taste for some of these. And then we got on with the whole craft brew train, and basically just forgot all about these actually. And we wanted to try, like, it's been so long since I had one, I almost forget what they taste like, So we went, and this is all we could gather in town locally. We scoured all over the place. We went down, deep downtown, we found a store where we got actually most of these at. But the 40-ounce bottles, I think there was only one store that had them.
The Colt 45.
Yeah, and then we actually had cans already, so we didn't get them. But we're going to start this sampling, and we're going to do taste tests, because really, what is a malt liquor? Like, any idea?
Mostly sugar. But honestly, sugar and some grain. Other than that, really, what is in there?
So when you look up online, you look up malt liquor as a beer style, it's not really technically a beer style in a way. It's like it's so muddy there what a malt liquor actually is. And I think by definition it's real vague, like a high gravity malt beverage, I think is what it stated. And there's other little variances there. So we want to capture kind of the essence of what malt liquor was, and like basics. What's the average ABV? What's some of the flavors that we're looking for in these? What's the common denominator between all these? Now, from what I gather too, it's all lagers. So it's basically a high gravity lager is what we're looking at. Now, how are they making a high gravity lager and making it extremely cheap and inexpensive? That's the other challenge, because if we're going to do a malt liquor, it needs to be cheap for one, but I don't want to make just a crappy malt liquor. Like, I want to call this a craft malt liquor, right? I want it to kind of have an essence of what malt liquor is all about, but I want it to taste good too, and we also have to do it affordably. So
it's a difficult task,
It's a difficult task. So we're going to start off with the sampling here. Let's. Now this was in order. We kind of both agreed. We think this is going to be completely horrible. We're probably going to spit it out. So we made that last so we don't ruin our taste buds.
This is what I used to drink when I was younger.
I remember the little hand grenade bottles. We drank a lot.
But they
of
had
these.
The foil tops.
Yeah. And I do remember a lot of these were decent beers. So here, you do the honors.
I am nervous about this.
And we did, the wife brought down some cheese and crackers here, so we have some palate cleansers, or just mouth rinsers if they're too bad.
It's got great color, actually.
It does. I mean, the clarity of it. We've never actually sat down and analyzed malt liquor before, so this will be interesting. So here we go. Let's start with the nose. You definitely get lager right on the nose.
Actually, it smells really.
It has
a great aroma.
It kind of reminds me of like a Heineken or Corona type smell.
Yeah, a Heineken.
Almost like that.
Like a Heineken.
Yeah, and you get that green bottle too. It's actually not bad.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very light. It's actually got not as crisp as I'd like it, but it's actually a very clean drinking beer.
It's actually not bad. Like I could still sit down and
I could drink one.
And drink these. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about these, but I could drink one.
So yeah, exactly. The other interesting part of this, we looked all over this label, could not find an ABV. And we looked up online, and I think online it claimed 5.6 is what the alcohol was on this, which actually isn't really that high of a gravity on that.
No, it's not. Not for a malt liquor.
Exactly. But also, now back then though, 5.6 was high. I remember beers back in the day being like 3.5%, 4% alcohol. and they've kind of slowly creeped up. I mean, now it seems to be craft beer is like an average of 5%. So 5.6 is really not that high. Now, my guess is as you go up in your ABV, the flavors are going to get worse. That's just my theory.
The head retention really sucks, though, on this.
It does, too.
There's really not a whole lot there.
There's really no head, and that's probably due to lack of proteins. They're probably pumping so much sugar in there and stuff.
Yeah.
And it just dissipates right away. And actually, the carb level isn't that
no, it's not
high
that,
either.
I thought it would be a lot more.
But it definitely has that green bottle taste almost.
It has a very unique lagering taste to it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because they ferment these higher.
Yeah. Yeah, overall though, I'd say this one is not bad, it's drinkable. I think that's definitely going to be the highlight of this evening. So I'm not going to finish this right now. Let's sit these down below. We'll grab some new glasses. All right.
All right, next one.
St. Ides, Crooked Eyes. I remember, I think this one was the one that was like Ice Cube endorsed it back in the day. I remember drinking this a long, long time ago, but I honestly don't remember if I liked it or not.
Just generally looking at it, it looks like a pretty decent beer.
It does. And this
Actually,
one...
it seems like it has better head retention.
It does. Yeah, it's hanging around.
The color is definitely...
It's darker.
It's darker.
And the ABV is higher too. This is 8.2%. This one actually did list the alcohol in the can. And that's another thing that blows me away, because for me, to get a label approved, they will not approve a label without ABV on it. And here we got several beers that do not have an alcohol listing on it.
Right.
I don't know how they can get away with it. It must be a grandfathered in type of thing.
That's what I was thinking.
Really not much of a room of aroma.
No, a little bit, but it's not.
I still get that lager smell. Big difference in taste.
I'm getting a really bad aftertaste.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, there's really not a whole lot of flavor.
Yeah, it's just... No, Mickey's actually had flavor.
It really did, yeah. Compared to what this is, I'm very disappointed in this. I love the color. The carbonation, same thing. It's very low.
It is.
It's not crisp at all. It's not a standard lager style.
You would think that they would pump that very high with, you know, with CO2. So this is an 8% beer that you're just buying it to get drunk.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste bad. I mean, but it doesn't taste good. There's like almost no flavor there, and it does have a little weird on the aftertaste. So we're gonna move that one off to the side, and I might
just dump that.
All right, moving on. Oh, English 800.
I'm interested in this one.
Yeah, I do remember drinking a lot of this, just because it was so available. Actually, should pour that last bit kind of hard just to see if it forms a head and holds it. Look at that.
You know, color-wise, I mean, it's definitely a little darker than the Mickey's.
Yeah. I mean, they're all very clean, though. It's probably filtered, is my guess.
Definitely. They'd have to be filtered.
I'm sure filtered and pasteurized. You getting anything on the nose?
Very little. I'm getting a little bit of the lager.
Definitely get a lager flavor off of that.
Actually, that's not half bad.
It's not.
It's
better than the St. Ides for sure.
Yeah, I'm not getting any off flavors or off tastes on it. You definitely get the lager flavor. Not very malty. There's no bittering. That's not half bad.
It's balanced. I mean, there's you can tell there's hops in there, but it's not overwhelming with, you know, it's just hop bittering. There's no hop flavor really.
The same thing though. It's not as crisp as I would expect it to be. From what I remember, especially with the Mickey's, because I drank maybe one or two of those, is it always seemed have that carb bite. These don't seem to have any carb bite.
You're right. I mean, overall, this isn't a bad beer. Like, I'd sit down and drink one of these. I could drink a whole one of these.
That's not half bad.
So here's the other interesting thing. So when we looked this up, again, no ABV listed on the can at all.
Yeah, when we looked it up,
there was a range.
Yeah, Canada was 8%. I can't remember what the other ones were.
It said 5.9 to 7.5%. Was like a range depending on, you know.
Yeah, which styles.
So if you're going to have a range on there, I mean, how can it not be on the can? That's quite annoying. Like, how do you not know?
How do you not know what it is?
What it is and drink it? So is this
how can they actually sell it that way?
Yeah. And we don't know, like, is this the lighter version and we like it better? Like, maybe if we had the higher ABV version, we may hate it. You know, so we have no idea what this is. But overall, it's actually a decent beer, and I could sit down and drink it.
Yeah, the aroma is pretty decent. The color is beautiful. Flavors, actually, not too awful bad.
Yeah. All right, now we're getting into scared territory. I've never even had this before. It's still reserved to 11. So you get the honors of that one, buddy.
For exceptional smooth flavor.
Oh, it says it's smooth. It's got to be smooth. I'll say I do like the colors of all these, though. I mean,
yeah, they're actually very clean, very clear.
And they're all pretty close. I mean, some are a little darker, some are a little lighter, but that is a common denominator that I'm seeing is it's all pretty colored. And would you say that all these beers that we tasted so far do have like a slight lager taste to them?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So, even aroma, sometimes you catch that lagery.
Because it doesn't actually say if it's an ale yeast or a lager yeast. It doesn't actually say other than malt liquor.
It's definitely different from the others.
It's way, way different. Like, I don't even know how to explain that.
Actually, I'm getting a really funky back end on this.
The longer it sits, like you swallow, and the longer I'm sitting here, it's just building.
It almost seems like I don't want to say a dank hops, but there's something in the back of this that I'm really disliking. The initial in the front part of the beer is actually halfway decent. I'm like, wow, this isn't too bad. And then all of a sudden it's like, ugh.
It just creeps up.
Yeah, it comes right up.
I'm going to go for one more drink here and see if it changes. Because sometimes, you know, you get that second drink, especially going from beer to beer. I'm really not getting much on the nose, though.
Yeah, no. To me, that is not a pretty
I'm starting to
beer.
get this, yeah. There's an issue with this beer as far as like an off flavor. Oh yeah, it's creeping.
I'm wondering if they actually ferment this really high. Starting to get some really strange aftertaste.
Yeah, like some of those esters that you don't want in there. So maybe some fusel alcohol too. I think I'm picking up a little bit of that fusel alcohol, and there's just that weird aftertaste. That first drink, it was just like not jumping forward, but that second drink is built. ABV, okay, here's another common thing. So ABV 8.1. Now here's a comment. So we see 8.1. This and St. Ides, we were both starting to detect some flavors we didn't like, some of that off flavors. That's the higher alcohol. So my guess is they're probably pumping this with cane sugar, or some type of maybe some syrup like corn syrup or.
Actually, the can says selected hops for extra gravity, but I don't know hops for gravity.
Yeah, that doesn't make
any sense. But anyways,
I'm thinking
I wouldn't suggest it, but
they're probably fermenting a little warmer because it's a lager. So if you're trying to move product through and make it fast and quick, they're probably bringing that lager temp up to finish that beer, and it's creating those
definitely
lager flavors. So let's just dump these.
That's
Colt. That's what I'm scared of because I know I remember hating Colt 45. So and there's two versions here. We got the original and the high gravity. So the original we were weighing in at 5.8%, and the high gravity was 8.3%. So my theory here, we're going to hate this one, and this one's going to be pure disgusting. That's my theory here. I'll let you do the honors, buddy.
Here we go on this one.
You open that one, I'll open this one.
Nothing there.
Okay, it's
no flavor.
It's just bland.
It is. It's not clean.
There's something that's creeping up there.
There is.
We're going to go for drink number 2, and I guarantee it's going to overwhelm. It's gonna
That
overwhelm
was
it.
the same thing. It looks to be a trend. No head retention
Yeah.
whatsoever. What a boring beer.
You know, it's not
If
completely disgusting like I remembered it being,
if you're
but
not
it's
a
not good.
if
by
you're
any
not
means.
a big beer drinker, I would say go for it because there's not a lot of anything into it. No,
even
no.
finishes. So we're gonna dump and move on to that guy. Oh, you know, I remember a long time ago they had a Colt 45 mint.
Ugh.
A mint, like who? Ugh. And yeah, it was really bad. All right, High Gravity Lager. Here, I'll hook you up, buddy. This is gonna be your secret sauce. You're gonna want to take this home tonight. Yeah, we're shooting this video down in the man cave at my house today, by the way. Different background here.
Actually, the color doesn't look bad. It looks a little bit more.
Now I'm making a mess.
Looks a little bit more darker.
Actually, the head retention.
The head, yeah, the head.
You know, my guess on the head retention is because, you know, the head retention a lot is proteins and hops kind of help with that as well. And if you're cutting it with so much sugar to boost the gravity up, you're dropping that down. So they're probably not wasting money on, you know, dextrin malts and things like that to boost their head retention. But actually, this one has the best head retention out of all of them so far.
It's fading fast. You poured this one first, correct?
Yeah.
So it's fading fast, but all in all, it's not terrible.
Oh god, even the smell is just a turn off though. I'm actually smelling something funky right out of the gate. Oh, that's terrible. What is that? What the hell is that? Oh my god. That's horrendous, man.
It's got to be a hops.
No. Oh god, it just keeps growing too. I can't even take another drink of that. Like, that is terrible. That is the
That
worst.
is horrible.
And you have to be pretty desperate at 8.3%. First time you have to go for a palate cleanser. Oh my god.
Yep, that's a no.
Honestly, that's kind of what I was expecting with this one.
Yeah.
But this one you could probably actually sit and drink. But notice the trend. The higher the gravity, the worse it's tasting.
My picks would be between the Mickeys and the Old English.
Old English. Absolutely, I second that notion. I tell you, I actually like the Mickeys though. I could literally sit down and drink.
I kind of like that one myself.
So, okay, let's talk about our Craft Malt Liquor now. We want to design this recipe, this Craft Malt Liquor, that we're only going to brew once in a lifetime.
You never know. You never know.
So here's our challenge. One, we know it's got to be a lager, right? So we're going for cheap. We have to make this inexpensive. We want to do the biggest can size that we can do on our canning machines right now, 16 ounces. So we're going to put this in 16 ounces, and our goal would be to make it $1 a can. 99 cents a can. Now, I don't know, to make it taste good, though, we may have to charge a little bit more because we're not going for a cheap, crappy beer.
Right.
What we're going for is a high-gravity lager that actually tastes good and has flavor. But we have to be able to make it inexpensively. So, talking yeast, we know it's lager yeast, which means we have to harvest off another batch.
Yes.
So we have to have harvested yeast. So, you know, another trick I bet you these guys might be doing, wonder if they're using sparge runoff.
Like, it very well could be.
Using runnings from another
that
beer.
would make sense for the Colt 45. These, the Mickeys and the Old English, I would question that. But the other ones, yes.
So when you're done, you got like maybe 4 bricks left. So we're going to put a bunch of water in there, pump it over there, and put some sugar in there, maybe steep a little bit of grain or something. We're definitely not going to go that route.
No, that's bad.
We're not going that route. All right, so we know we need a lager yeast, and we got to harvest it off another batch. So when we make our next batch of lager, we're going to harvest some yeast off of it. So yeast is free, so that way we can make this cheaper.
Right.
All right, now we're going to talk about base malt. So we basically got a choice with base malt between Pilsner and two-row. Honestly, for this style of beer, I would have rather went with a Pilsner. However, Pilsner malt is more expensive. So I think we want to go with two-row because we have to keep it. This is a balancing game, you know?
Yes, definitely.
So we have to, we want to make it taste good, but we also got to make it inexpensive.
Tasting these beers, I would assume they are not using Pilsner malt.
So we're talking base malt is two-row. You know, we're gonna call it two. It's the cheapest malt that we can basically get.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably move up into a six-row, but actually six-row is becoming obsolete now.
Yeah.
And it definitely has more enzyme power and stuff. But I think last time I priced it, I think two-row was cheaper than six-row. And we're going for inexpensive here, and I don't think we're gonna have that much of a flavor difference there. All right, so now the big question is, where do we want our ABV to be?
Well, you know, Mickey's were 5.
Well, it was 5. What was it?
5.6 or 5 something.
5.6. So we're leaning towards. I think at a minimum it should be 6, maximum 8.
I was going to say 7. I think between the two, I think we can control it a little bit better. I think a 7 would be really nice on that.
So and actually, if we look at the average of these, it is 5.8 being the lowest. So we'll just round up to 6. 6 to 8. Actually, I think that was what, 8.5. But yeah, 8.3, 8.2. No, that's way too much. But between 6 to 8, I think 7. Yeah, it's a sweet spot. It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
Because I am seeing a trend here. The higher the alcohol, the worse the flavor.
Yes, definitely.
So there's definitely a trade-off there. We have to be very careful with that. Because, let's face it, we are going to have to cut this with something. We can't put enough malt in here to make a 7% beer and make it affordable. We're going to have to cut it with cane sugar.
Definitely. I agree with that 100%.
So we're going to talk about adjuncts.
I don't think they're adding any corn.
No, and you know what? Corn is not cheap. Corn's expensive.
No, it's not. Yep.
So if you're buying processed corn that we can just readily use, flaked corn, it's expensive. It's more expensive than malt or barley.
Right.
So that is not an option for us. Now, maybe if you're talking about like some high fructose corn syrup or
you got to figure
something
they're
like
probably
that.
doing 80 barrels or 100 and some barrels compared to our,
Our
1 barrel
system.
or 5 barrel or 10 barrel. You know. It's,
Yeah.
The cost efficiency on them.
We're just make this
I
straight.
know.
We're only going 1 barrel of this. It's a one and done 1 barrel beer. Just so we're clear on that, we're not going 10 barrels of malt liquor on this. That's for sure. But adjuncts. So basically, corn's out of the question because it's too expensive. Even rice, processed rice.
Yes.
And I would have typically I would have liked to put rice in this, but it's too expensive.
It would really help the beer out.
It would, unless we use real rice. Like if you buy rice that's already like brewer's rice, like a flaked rice product, it's very expensive. It's already been processed. It's ready. You can put it right in your mash. It's beautiful.
Yeah. But the haze on this would be tough to get out.
Yes, and we played with rice a lot, like real rice, and we've done rice beers. And I actually do like the flavor of rice.
Yes.
It actually does contribute something. I mean, Budweiser uses rice in their beers, and although I think they use rice syrup solids, but I'm not sure. But the rice does impart, it is kind of neutral. It actually lowers the calories of the beer and stuff like that. But anyway, rice is kind of out of the question unless we use real rice, which I don't want to do because every time we've used it, it's hazed the beer.
Always. Permanent
Permanent haze, and it clogged our filters. We made this rice beer, and it clogged up our filters like instantly, and it was a nightmare. So okay, no rice. So what are we left with? Really, it's just sugar. A boost
sugar,
cane sugar. Cane sugar is cheap. It's the most inexpensive way to boost the gravity. Now,
flavor-wise, we might
want
to...
Now we got to talk about flavor. Specialty malts.
I would say maybe a caramel 10 and maybe some biscuit.
Biscuit's an interesting...
Other than that, I mean, really...
Well, we can't go too crazy because, I mean, let's face it here too, we're talking cost. And this is where it's such a balancing game. We want to make this beer cheap and pump it out there. We want to maintain the essence of what malt liquor is and what it's about. It's a cheaper, higher gravity beer, but we want to call this a craft malt liquor, and we want it to taste good too. So to take all this into consideration, we can't use a heavy dose of specialty malts because they're expensive. But we can use a little touch of them, and I do agree with caramel 10 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Like caramel 10, it's a subtle one. Like if you put like 90 or 40,
well,
now we're going to start to tint it in the brown direction.
Yeah, then you would lose the color.
So let's go with a caramel 10. We'll have to figure out ratios and stuff, but we're just brainstorming right now. So we're thinking maybe a caramel 10 might help give it a little bit of flavor, a little something, because these are bland, they're boring. Mm-hmm. And that sugar's going to dry it out.
Well, I mean, drying this beer out, I don't think it would be a terrible thing. I mean, it would definitely give you a better crisp.
You mentioned biscuit malt. I'm going to put biscuit with a question mark because I do like biscuit malt. We've used biscuit malt in several recipes. Mm-hmm. It's got a good flavor in very small doses. Yes. But it's so easy to go over the top.
Well, that's why it would be a very limited amount.
Yeah. Like,
but we got to pull something. I mean,
yes.
I don't think caramel 10 will do it alone.
What if we went with a honey malt?
Actually, that might work really well.
Honey malt can be very scary. Like we've used it even in small doses. Sometimes can just overtake the whole beer with this very cloying, powerful sweetness, and it can take over. However, the fact that we have to boost this with cane sugar, that honey malt it's going to dry it out. The honey malt might add that touch of sweetness back in that we later on can balance with the hops. And because it's so powerful, we can use a tiny amount, which isn't going to be expensive.
Right.
So, are we in agreement?
Actually, that's a great. I
we never actually say honey malt. So this is weird. And you know the other interesting thing, Mickey's, you know, they have that bee on there.
Yes, actually on the lid.
I don't know, like, I've always wondered, what does that bee represent? I mean, you would think honey. You know, although I wouldn't put honey itself in here because honey is so expensive.
And honestly, it takes too long to ferment out.
Yeah, it is. Every time you use honey with something, it definitely causes challenges with fermentation. I don't know why. It's like mead makers. I applaud them because
exactly.
Mead is a very difficult thing to make. But honey malt is another story, and it's kind of the way it's kilned and everything. So I think we could use a very tiny amount of honey malt, and maybe we do add some for complexity. Maybe we do add the equal amount of biscuit malt. Because this is going to be so minute, we match that with the biscuit malt.
I mean, you could also look at like Vienna or a
Vienna,
or
this is just our brainstorming session. Sorry if this video's taking too long here, but this is how we come up with formulas. You know, like when we go to create a new beer, we usually get all our favorite beers from that brewing style, and we sit down, we taste them, we analyze them, and we break down the flavors and the characteristics. This one is so different because there's nothing solid there. Like, it's not like we picked our favorites here. Like, this is all we could get, and it's just a very unique situation. But usually this is our process, though. We analyze what we like, we pick out the flavors, say we really like this flavor, you know, we're gonna go with this malt and this because we've been doing it for so long that we can build these recipes up.
Even a possible Munich. I mean, that's a touchy one, but I think Vienna would be a little bit better choice.
I think Munich would take it into another category.
That's what I'm thinking too.
It would be too much. I agree with the 10. I think the honey malt is that might be a... And I kind of almost think that honey malt might be a little tiny throwback to Mickey's. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I am curious though. I have no idea, but maybe someone leave a note in the comments below. You know, do they actually use honey in their thing or whatever? But anyway, the honey malt's a good idea. I'm going to keep that question mark on biscuit because I do like the biscuit malt, and it could be a possibility, but we have to be an extremely low dose. Let's talk about the other side of the coin here. Head retention. Zero head retention.
Yeah.
So we need to put some dextrin in here.
Oh, definitely.
So we're gonna call it carapils, but it could be any dextrin malt really. hell, even a touch of wheat. But that's going to cloud it. Wheat would cloud it. Dexter malt wouldn't.
Right.
So carapils, maybe just about the appropriate amount of carapils, like percentage-wise. I think it was like 3 to 5%, somewhere around there. So, but carapils, I think, is important in this. Now, that is going to increase the cost a little bit, but that's where we're going to move into the craft side of the malt liquor.
Right.
Maybe we can't make it for $1 for a can, but we can still, you know, get it affordable enough where it's going to be way cheaper than anything else we produce on the craft side. Now, let's talk hops. This is going to be a huge part of this beer because obviously it can't taste like an IPA. You can't, you know, over hop it, but it's definitely going to have to be balanced with a good crisp bittering.
Well, I'm not sure how much bittering hops they'd ever use in this particular style of beer.
I'm thinking we stick to like some American hop style. Like, hey, you know what? Here's another factor. We're still talking cost, and hops are expensive. Hops are one of the most expensive components in the beer, and one of the most inexpensive hop varieties out there that still tastes good is Cascade. You know, it's been one of the most widely used hops in the history of beer, and we actually grow them here. You know, we have about 32 plants that we do. We make a wet hop beer every year with Cascade hops, and it tastes phenomenal. So, matter of fact, we might even actually have a stash of some frozen hops in there from last harvest, which would cut down the cost.
Yeah,
so let's say Cascade. You good with that?
I'm always good with Cascade.
All right, so we're gonna go Cascade on this for its hop variety.
Now, are you talking bittering or are you talking late additions?
I'm thinking potentially both.
Okay.
I definitely think that, I mean, we'll have to play around and probably like some Beersmith or something and actually figure out our actual IBUs and where we think they should be, fall within a lager, right? Typical American lager range.
Right.
I think we balance those IBUs in the bittering edition, but I'm kind of thinking we do a 15-minute edition. I don't think a Whirlpool edition would be appropriate in this because you don't really want to taste the, if you get a small hint of the hop flavor, I think might help cover up a little bit of that cane sugar boost that we're putting in there, but it has to be so subtle that you can't feel like you're drinking an IPA. So there it is. That's our whole thought process going from beginning to end. I hope this video wasn't too long and drawn out.
Mickeys.
But yeah, so far we're liking the Mickeys, and we're gonna keep you in touch when we finish this beer. We'll take a little bit of video throughout the process. I think of us making it. And cheers.